Hi, welcome to another edition of Testimony Tuesday. I'm Mark, and today I'm happy to be joined by David Devens. David, thanks for joining me.
Hey, Mark, good to see you.
Good to see you too. How you been?
Great, thanks.
All right, awesome. So, as we do every week, we ask that important question, and I'll turn it over to you. And the question is, what's your testimony?
Yeah, so I guess we get into it with a little bit of story, um, or maybe from the beginning of my approaching you was I was a little apprehensive actually in doing this because even though I had shared this story hundreds of times with different people around the world, I was a little concerned because of it's not really a PG story. And given the audience of the church body, I was concerned who may be watching it or who not. And anyway, your response to me was, well, what rating do you think the Bible is? And yeah, that was a pretty good word. I needed to hear that. And so anyway, parents have fair warning that there may be topics brought up here that would may cause questions or discussions with them that you may or may not want to have at this point. So I'll let you determine that. So I think my story is a little maybe not uncommon, but it's different from some that we've heard so far. I mean, my childhood was great. It was fun. You know, we had a loving home. My parents both cared deeply for us, loved us. It wasn't a religious home. My father had had some Catholic upbringing, and my mom as well. There was some church going that my mom had gone to when I was younger, but it wasn't. It was just never really a family thing. There just wasn't a lot of spirituality in our upbringing, though we certainly were told right from wrong, and I think we were mostly pretty good kids. I was an honor student right up into high school, and that's kind of where I started taking another course, got into rebellion pretty hard. I don't really know why, even to this day, because even though I was capable of honors work, mostly I just didn't do it. I don't really know why. I mean, I started hanging around, I guess, with sort of some different friends. Started partying a lot more. Somewhere around, ninth and 10th grade is when I started drinking and smoking pot here and there. Not a lot, but enough to raise the eyebrows of my honor student friends. And then, getting into sophomore and senior years of high school, it was really sneak out as often as you could and try to get drunk and as often as you could. So that just kind of carried through. I barely graduated high school. Went down to Florida for a few months. Really pretty goalless, just floating around job to job. Came back up here, same thing. Living for the weekend. It was all about partying, and I had friends, and I still and we cared about each other, but it wasn't real deep. It was just like you just living to drink and have parties. I didn't respect others. I certainly didn't respect women. My overexposure to pornography led me to not having a very good understanding even of what relationships were, that women were objects, I was completely selfish, and it wasn't a very good time. That kind of went all the way through till I was, I don't know, about 24. One day, a friend of mine and I had gone to Hampton for the day. We had been drinking. I was driving. I wasn't drunk, but when we came home that night, we got into a car wreck, and it was like the sixth or seventh car in a pileup. And um, I'm surprised he didn't die, actually. He wasn't wearing a belt. He was kind of passed out in the passenger seat. I had my seatbelt on. I think I had more bruises on me than he had on him. Mine from the seatbelt and the airbag, and him from hitting the windshield. Uh, Crazy. Most of the people in the accident didn't get hurt. The people that were, ahead of us in the accident. I ended up calling up my sister, who graciously came to get us at like midnight. And that sort of moment that maybe should have been a wake-up call really just allowed me into the next step of my downward spiral, because when the insurance money came, I decided, well, I'm going to buy a one-way ticket to Las Vegas and see what's going on out there. Now, I wasn't really sure what to expect. I just knew that I wanted something different than what I was, the rinse repeat cycle that I was on around here. And I just wanted to experience city and newness and everything that it maybe had to offer. I got a job bartending, which was probably my first mistake, because as a bartender, everyone who comes into the bar wants to be your friend. And what that ultimately does is gives you almost unlimited access to almost anything that you want, particularly in that town. And it was, and what I wanted certainly wasn't good for me. The cycle of drinking got worse. I started getting more heavily into drug scene. Now, I had been exposed to everything throughout high school and through partying beyond that. I didn't do much more than smoke weed once in a while, but there were certainly people around me, doing coke, acid, just about anything else. But once I got into Vegas, it was the same kind of scene, except it was more like smoking crack and heroin, and doing smoking and or injecting heroin. They were chasing the dragon, is a little smoking the heroin term. I never really crossed that line, but what I did get into quite heavily was crystal meth and cocaine. And that just kind of got worse and worse as I was there. And you kind of couple that with gambling. As a bartender, I was making pretty good money. I was making my month's bills in a week and, getting in trouble with the rest of it. And so there was lots of drug use, lots of just getting worse while I was there. Sort of near the end of my time, I was there for about 13 months or so. Somewhere near the end there, I can recall one time where I went out on a Thursday night and I woke up on a Sunday afternoon, and I don't have a lot of memory of what happened in between. Full-on blackouts, and there's little flashes. I do recall that at one of the bars I was in, I was drinking a margarita, and it was as if my body was shutting down and wouldn't allow me to swallow any more alcohol, as it was just, I would take a drink and it would just run down my face, down onto my clothes, and it was really quite gross. It was somewhere around that time, I guess, I realized, this wasn't going in a good direction. And my brother-in-law, actually, back in New Hampshire, had offered me a job. He had said if I had ever come back that he could put me to work. So eventually I did that. I guess now I'm getting on to be about 26. And he put me to work painting. He taught me a trade. And very thankful to him for that. It was during that period when I was working for him that I was kind of drying out. I was still drinking here and there. Not here and there. I mean, I was still drinking quite a bit, but I didn't have as much access to the drug scene as I had out there. And though I'm sure I could have found it, I was really trying to just not find it here. There was a couple incidences of relapse, but not too bad. So anyway, that went on for a couple years working for him. And then one summer, I think I was 27, I was working alongside a guy named Jim, and he was a Christian. When you are painting for a while, you just kind of do it. It becomes almost mindless. It's like muscle memory, but it leaves your mind open to be able to talk and just solve the world's problems. And inevitably, that conversation that I had with Jim revolved around spiritual things and God, because of his beliefs and his Christianity. Now, we went through a lot of the same kind of things that I guess are typical. Trying to poke holes in his belief system, all the old, common things about dinosaurs and big bangs and authorship, translations, all that kind of stuff. But really what I ended up coming down to was I just really liked him, and I liked the conversations I was having with him, and I liked how honest he was, because whenever he didn't know something, he would just tell me, I don't know. But he would usually try to find out, and if he couldn't find out, then he would just come back and say, some things I just don't know, and that's kind of just the way it is. But I appreciated that, at least that honesty. So anyway, towards the end of that summer, one day I had come home from work, and I was just on the couch thinking about all that kind of stuff, and decided I didn't want to think about that anymore, and I was just feeling kind of frustrated. I turned on the TV, and there was a children's choir singing. I don't know why it was on the channel it was on, but this choir was singing, "Open the eyes of my heart, Lord, I want to see you." And that was it. I broke down on the spot. I started crying. And at that moment, I really had a true kind of calling out. I was in speaking to God, and I called out to him. I said, "God, if you're real, I gotta know. I can't keep doing this. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know where I'm going. God, if you're real, you gotta show me, please. Are you real? What is this?" And it was at that time, I'm sitting on the couch, and it's like I almost felt like another presence or another something kind of settled down onto me. It was almost like another person sat down where I was sitting, but kind of settled in and joined me. And it was like, goosebumps, and the hair are raising on the back of your neck and on your arms. And I had felt this peace. I felt like my shoulders relaxed, and I felt like things were sort of melting. and I just started bawling even more. I was just sobbing. And I just started saying thank you over and over again. After a while, I kind of calmed down. I went to take a shower, and I remember in the shower, kind of these little things hitting me again, and I just started crying again, and laughing at the same time. I mean, I must have looked like a mental patient. But I just remember saying thank you again in the shower, and having these little moments where I'm like, I'm gonna be in heaven. Heaven's real. God's with me, and I'm gonna be with him forever. Having these sort of like glimpses of revelation things or whatever. And it was just awesome. And there it was. That's when it happened for me. I was about 27 years old. And it was a new course for my life. At that moment, I mean, I felt like I was freed from all of the addictions that had plagued me up to that point. And I called Jim up and I told him, and he was like, "Awesome, brother," and he was just so pleased, that I had finally come to that humbling of myself. And I guess that's what I would stress, right? Is that the story that I'm telling isn't really my story. I didn't do anything. God did. He reached out to me and revealed himself to me in a way that, it's 21 years ago, and nothing has changed. If anything, I want to know him more every day. And it just is awesome. My life since that point. I mean, I had a spiritual sort of rescue, not sort of, an actual spiritual rescue. And it didn't mean that things got perfect, because I made and still do make plenty of mistakes. I initially went into a very charismatic sort of faith, and then sort of got disillusioned there, and sort of pendulum swung back to like a really heavy, hard, conservative, cultural Christian sort of faith that started mixing in politics and all these other things with faith. And it was just this weird, I don't know, and now I'm backed off of that, and I feel like I'm finding balance better now, but certainly have a lot to learn still. But really, I just want to love people. I want to put people first. I had a sort of a second rescue, I would say, and that was more of a physical, sort of in this real world rescue, because as I was making mistakes, I found my wife, and I owe her as much as I owe anybody, for pulling me out of my the life that I was kind of still in, even though I was spiritually rescued and saved. She really helped me get direction and focus, and a better understanding of commitment and faith and love, what love even is. So yeah, I mean, since then, it's been awesome. Doesn't mean things are perfect, but I mean, wow. I certainly wouldn't have expected at 24 and 25, when I was scraping the bottom of the barrel, that 20 years later I would be married with 8 children, and have been, to the places in the world that I've been, and met the people that I've met, and heard the things that I've heard, and seen the stories of God come true right before my own eyes. It's just been an incredible journey, and I can't wait, to see what the rest of it's going to bring. So I guess that's where we are now.
Wow, that was great.
Thank you.
Thank you, David, so much for sharing your testimony with us. And God bless you and your family. Thank you for watching. I hope you were encouraged by David's testimony today. And if you'd like to be on a future Testimony Tuesday, just reach out to me, and we'll schedule a time when we can talk. So hope to see you, and God bless you.
All right, I'll see you. Bye.